and setting up either, right? Proper blade respects. So if you're walking around with the blade, the most important thing is that the edge is not turned towards anyone, the tip is not pointed at anyone. You're not like walking over to someone going, look at my sword, right? So blade safety, kind of like guns with muzzle control, that's our primary thing. So never put a sword back in its sheath before it's been cleaned. So after you cut, you have to clean the sword that you're working with. A whole lot about cutting in a minute. If you've never cut before, there's only going to be one cut that you're allowed to do. We'll get to that in a moment. So setting up and sweeping is pretty simple. I'll do the first one so you can see what setup and sweep is all about. These are wrapped around this way, so I have to turn it counterclockwise to get it in. I'm not sure that all of them will be wrapped the same way. Then you're going to pick up this socket driver and tighten the flange around. Now the flange itself is made out of rubber, and it can take a fair amount of abuse, but then we'll need to replace it, and I'm pretty sure that they're about 25 bucks each. It's just your typical sort of toilet flange that goes in your floor. So,
and if you cut into the flange and hit the hose clamp, you'll wreck your sword.
No, you won't. You'll wreck our sword. Right? Yeah. So, anyway, you're going to find, if you're not Colin or I, you should not try to cut below this level anyhow. Alright? First of all, it's dry down here. So it's not going to cut well. It's going to grip your blade, our blades, and it's going to redirect you, which is going to be interesting on your wrist. Okay? Also, you're risking hitting the C-clamp. So, is that called C-clamp?
Hose clamp.
Hose clamp? So, if you hit the hose clamp, you ruin our swords, and it would take Colin hours and hours to buff it back up to not quite as good as it used to be, right? When you come up to cut, now anyone that's never cut before on this, you got to spend some time with me off to the side with a stick or machete or something. I want to watch the way that you're doing your angle 1, because we're only going to work with angle 1 if it's your first time, all right? And the reason is this: when you first try to cut something, there is the stress of actually wielding a live blade, right? If you swing a live blade and you've never done it before, you're going to be tempted to like power it, which is wrong. You don't want to use power. You're going to be tempted to like lean, to move your body in awkward ways. So we're going to stick with the number 1, and we're going to look at stepping through your number 1, or even standing here and just turning with the number 1 and going to chamber. Okay? Notice where my other arm is? It's in here. Another reason we're practicing just number 1 is because we can perfect this move. It's a very natural move, and we need to get to here where the blade is pointing away from us, because we don't want to see this kind of thing. Right? There was a school down south where they had a cutting class like this, and one of the women taking the class put the sword into her leg. Literally. Right? So, and we've actually had a similar thing happen here before, right? Where a sword ended up in one of the students' feet. So, almost going all the way through. Missed by about 1 millimeter going all the way through, and it was really, really lucky in that it missed everything important and healed up right away. So, but it didn't have to go that way, because these things could just as easily take out bones, right? Easy to cut through bones, right? So sometimes when we roll these up, we roll them up with sticks inside so that we can emulate the radius and the ulna, and we'll cut through. So when you do hit this, there's a tendency for it to scallop, for it to cut on a curve. Especially since all these are curved blades, the likelihood for it to scallop, so it'll actually twist in your hand like this. Usually it scallops up because our flexors tend to be a little bit stronger than our extensors. So this is another reason why we're going to practice this cut, number 1. When you step up to it so that you start getting used to it, I want your first 5, 6 passes to be just out of range. And when you do start hitting, I want you to be cutting millimeters into the material, like cutting individual strands, right? It's much, much better for you to start out with that so that you can figure out how little power it really takes for you to cut through this thing. If you do it well, if your geometry is good, if your line is lined up well, it'll go through like butter, right? If you hit it flat like this, and the whole thing bends on you, then it's going to bind, and you're going to get feedback from the blade, and that's where it's really important to have your follow-through come to chamber and the blade pointing away from you. I'm not going to cut it, but so if I'm here, I want to practice this, right? Also, point of etiquette: don't touch the steel with your hands, right? Don't touch the steel to your skin at all. Okay, because you'll leave your oils on the blades and you'll wear it in ways that it shouldn't be. So it's just a thing about etiquette with collectors of weapons, bladed weapons in particular. So cutting here and going to this is the only thing that, if you're new, right? If you've been here 2 or 3 times, you could try your backhand cuts. I don't want anyone trying any trick cuts unless it's me or Ryan, because we might do it for video purposes. But we're definitely not going to have anyone doing that until we feel very, very, very confident that they're not going to stab themselves in the foot or something. So anyway, any questions about anything I said so far? Okay, so when you're done with the weapon, I wouldn't even bother sheathing them again. Just make sure that you come over here and you clean the blade. There will be grass and water and resin from the rattan. Do not put your finger on the front edge of the blade, right? You could squeeze the sides and keep your hand on away from the sharp side, right? And really the blades need to dry before they go back in the scabbards, even if it's oil. So I'm going to say, once it's there, put the blade down. Make sure that the edge is pointing away from anybody that might want to walk past it. So this is pretty safe for other people walking around. Okay, when you come through here, make sure you don't knock it because we don't want the blades falling down. There's only 2 people that are going to be in here. This is the person with their blade preparing and the person sweeping and setting up. Okay, so this one's set up. Let's get started in a minute. So all I want you to do is I want you to practice swinging from here to here, and I want your apex to land at around eye level, and your wrist should still be neutral, and you want to really look at the alignment. If my alignment's like this, I'm going to scallop. I'm not even going to scallop, it's going to twist, right? So you want to cut straight through, like so. You can hammer at it a little bit, and we're just going to bring it through to here. Okay? So, try not to let it touch yourself. Now, if you're using the Japanese sword, like this, because we have a few of them, right? What you do is you hold it in front of you like this, and this is the same for all the swords, really. You hold it here, and then as you bring it up, you're going to tilt it to the angle you're cutting at, and step forward. Right? Yeah. And this hand is down here. Right? So the Japanese way of holding the base of the sword is actually with the baby finger underneath. Right? So if you're using the two-handed, you're going to be holding it something like this. Right? Here. Notice that I'm ending out. Once I've got to this point, I fold it around to here. That's it. Keep going. That's it. And the reason is you don't want to end up with this, right? That's very bad. But people do it frequently. So you're looking to get this with the follow through to here. So if I'm single-handed, same thing. And so I think Ed's going to be the first to go. So what I want Ed to do is I want him to come over here. Right? And each of you are going to practice this as we go along. But I want Ed to come over here And I want him to practice getting closer and closer to that. And really watch the angle to see that the line that it's traveling on is the line that the blade's facing down. Right? And you want to get as close as you can and just smooth. Smooth. Right? Right? So just fine, Good. What? Yeah, yeah. On the